Today I want to show you my setup for connecting the Roland SPD-SX with the Roland MC-707 for use in my synthwave live set, which I've been fortunate enough to get to play quite a bit lately. The main thing I didn't like about that live set is that it's pretty linear, it's pretty straight ahead, and so I just kind of felt like I was standing there occasionally pushing buttons and then turning knobs a lot to try to stay busy, and I wanted to incorporate my drummer background to get to do stuff a bit more live. So here's the goal. Replace most of the main programmed drums with me playing drums live. And in order to do that reliably, because that's pretty exposed, I wanted a click track. I did try just using a programmed hi-hat that both I and the audience can hear because it's part of the drums. But in order to have it be something I can rely on, I wanted it to be pretty loud, and that sounds bad. So I want to have a dedicated click track. So I just dedicated a drum track to being my click. In order to route that, it was pretty simple, but kind of a bummer because I'm losing stereo. I've just panned that drum track hard right, and then I am using the right output for my monitoring channel. And then the left output is going to the PA and ultimately to the audience, which means that that's just mono audio going out, but it's live, and I don't think that's going to be noticeable really, especially on smaller sound systems and more DIY spaces. I don't think sending mono to the PA is going to really matter. And then in order to actually do the monitoring, I could just use a little converter and then plug my in-ears directly into that. But I already have this for a secret project that I'm working on. This is the X-Vive U4, and it's a wireless receiver that also comes with a wireless transmitter. So I'm plugging a wireless transmitter into my MC-707, and then I'm plugging my in-ears into this, which is really nice. I can be a little more mobile and not really have to worry about an extra cable. I can just kind of switch between my MC-707 and my SPD-SX. I'm not an expert at this thing, and it does have like a weird hiss that I don't love, but it works. All right, here's the first decision I had to make. The drum sounds are loaded directly onto the SPD-SX instead of me using this drum pad to control the drum track on the MC-707. This reduces the amount of routing and reduces the amount of voices that the MC-707 has to do, hopefully preventing a bit of voice stealing. So I have kick, snare, hi-hat, toms. These are the built-in sounds. These are actually sampled from the MC-707 and then processed a bit. A clap, that's sampled from my Syntakt, and then these don't have anything on them. In order to help me keep time, especially for a slower song, you'll see me playing this pad. There's nothing on it, as I've shown you a second ago, but it feels a lot more natural for me with my drummer background to kind of be doing this. That just works for me. So that's why I'm hitting this even though it's not doing anything. And by the way, to load the sounds, I just put them on a USB stick, plugged it in, loaded them into the active memory, and then was able to populate the pads. I should also mention that I have deliberately made all of these non-velocity sensitive so that, for one thing, I get very consistent drums, but for another, so that I can hit them pretty softly and still get the levels that I want, because in a smaller venue, I imagine you're going to be hearing the thwack of these pads, and that's bad. I tried swapping out these cheap light-up sticks, which one doesn't work, for mallets, and that wasn't actually any better, surprisingly enough. So I just play kind of softly, so I am deliberately missing out on velocity sensitivity here. So moving on to the MC-707, here's the mono out to the audience, or in this case, my handy recorder. Here is the wireless transmitter. I've got cables set up for my hologram microcosm, which is not featuring in today's video. But here's the main thing, the external in. So I've got a mono cable out of the SPD, and I'm running that into the input of the MC-707. It's also worth noting that there's a switch at the back here, and in order to have anything resembling an audible signal, I've set it to the mic setting, strangely enough. To properly hear the SPD through the MC-707, hit Shift and then Input. I've got this set to mono, I've got the record source to mix out, and then the mic sensitivity set to 1. If you'd like to see the original version of the live set with everything being programmed and a walkthrough of how I made it, you can check out these videos up over here somewhere, and I'll be back with a new video in a little bit. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching.